welcome to Procurement Pivots, the podcast for procurement professionals wanting to navigate change successfully and create career success on your own terms. I'm Donna Bowden, procurement career coach and founder of Narrate Your Career.
And I'm Laura Sellers, executive coach for procurement and founder of Coaching for Procurement. And between us, we bring almost 25 years of supporting and working with procurement professionals. And it's fair to say we've navigated many of our own career pivots along the way. And now we're here to help you do the same.
Each episode will share practical strategies, honest conversations, and expert insights to help you confidently tackle the changes and challenges in your procurement career.
Let's get started.
Hi everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Procurement Pivots podcast. Today is the last in our current series. So if you've been tuning in over the last 3 weeks, you will know that we've been running a 4-part series. Put my cheese back in. A 4-part series to really help you to succeed in your mission to kind of achieve your goal, whatever that goal is that you're setting for yourself. And so over the last 3 episodes, we have covered helping you to actually formulate the right goal in the first place, the calibration of it, the sense checking, the kind of just making sure it feels like it is that right goal. And then last time we started to talk about, really thinking about what could some of those challenges or some of those obstacles be that might stand in your way. And so today is the last in the series, and we're going to be, I suppose, talking about, the resources, the support, the help that you might want to consider, or to assess whether you need anything additional in order to allow you to successfully kind of achieve that goal for yourself. So, yeah, do you want to kind of talk through a bit about what we're going to be covering today, Laura?
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, welcome back. And as Donna says, we've been doing this series and today's the final installment of that. So we're going to be covering understanding what resources we need for this particular goal. Again, it could look different depending on what it is you're trying to achieve. We're going to take a look into the gaps that you might feel you have in that support between where you are now and where you want to get to. We're then also going to look at more of the mindset element of things, and then we're going to bring it back all together again as a nice wrap up for how to go on your way with achieving this goal.
Yeah, and we really hope that you have been kind of following along, actioning as you go. And as we said, if you haven't listened to those kind of prior 3 episodes, we would encourage you probably to go back to them. And I think it was the first of those, I think was episode 26, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes. So this is 29.
This is 29 now. So yes, the start point really, we would encourage you to ask yourself a very important question, which is, do you have all of the resources that you need in order to be able to achieve that goal that you've set for yourself?
Yeah, it's such a good question because, again, making it relevant to what you've decided your goal is for this year based on the previous episodes, it might be that the support might look quite different. And I say support, but we're talking about resources, right? So resources can cover, it's not just support from a person, but what do I need that's going to help me get there? So for some people, it's like a knowledge thing, like they need to have more knowledge on something. For others, it is the support of another person. And it's just around, like we talked about calibrating in the second episode of this series, episode 27, we talked about calibrating that goal, making sure that we are making it as relevant and specific and achievable as possible with it being within your control. And the resources element that we're talking about now today is around looking outside of ourselves, really,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
seeing what there is.
Yeah, but as you say, those resources, that help, that support could be really, really, really varied. It isn't just about, what people could help you, but even again, we've alluded to this in previous episodes, but even, setting yourself up with the right structure, could be considered potentially a resource,
Mm.
to make sure that you've got that mechanism for actually reviewing, assessing how well is it going, is your progress kind of on track, do you need to do anything differently? So yeah, I think a really great question. So to recap that first one, do you have all of the resources that you need to successfully achieve that goal that you've set for yourself?
Yeah.
Um, and then again, you've kind of just touched on it actually in what you've just said, but we would recommend that you almost do a kind of a bit of a gap analysis. So,
Mm.
where are you today? Where do you need to be by that point that you are achieving that goal that you've set for yourself, and actually where do you see those kind of those gaps? What skills do you need to develop, maybe what experience, what help and support from other people? So it's almost kind of understanding, yeah, from where you are right now today versus where it is you're hoping to get to. What is that kind of that gap, or that thing that is missing, that if you can kind of rectify that, it will just give you a much, much, much stronger chance of actually achieving that goal in the long run.
Yeah, such a great point. A gap analysis is always so good because we don't always, I mean, we hear the term gap analysis in business quite a lot, but I really encourage people to interrogate that gap quite a lot because sometimes the gap isn't as big as you believe it to be.
Mm,
So, I alluded to knowledge earlier on, but this is where I sort of see sometimes people getting stuck is that they think they need to have all of the knowledge. And we've talked about this, haven't we, in Progress Over Perfection in
totally.
that episode, which was episode number 13. We've also got we've talked about the obstacles and being able to really break them down. But I think definitely interrogate that gap, but also be honest with yourself, having that self-reflection. Okay, where do I think my gap is? What do other people tell me I'm really good at and what I need
Mm,
to improve upon? Because sometimes that gap is not the gap we have in our minds is not an accurate reflection sometimes of
yeah,
what we need. And it might just be, again, I say it all the time, breaking down what that gap is. It might feel like a huge gap, but if you were to break down what that gap looked like and what's the first step to overcoming that gap, that also might help.
yeah. And I loved what you said there about other people recognizing your strengths, because the gap isn't going to feel like a strength. It's going to feel like your areas for development or your weaknesses, however you want to kind of position it. But just looking at the gap again, isn't giving you that balanced view. So also kind of leaning into, what are the positives, the strengths, the superpowers, the skills that you've got that are going to enable you to achieve that goal. Because also it's kind of thinking about, how could you do more of those things that you're already feeling really confident about,
Mm.
in order to maximize your chances of achieving the goal. So I think understanding, like, if there is a gap and what you're going to do about it is key and is really important, but also recognizing the strengths, the strengths that are going to enable you, that already exist in you, that are going to
Mm.
enable you to kind of deliver that goal. Because going into it feeling really positive and knowing that you can make this happen, even if there are some current gaps, you're confident with how you can go about kind of overcoming them, I guess.
Yeah, perfect. And again, it's the I don't know that yet because we can
Yeah,
achieve things and achieve more than what we probably give ourselves credit for. So
yeah,
yeah, so I guess some great questions there for that self-reflection piece is that what is the gap? Like if where do I want to get to? What do I already have? And what do I need? So
yes,
very, very simple, open questions. And we talked about brainstorming the obstacles in the previous
yeah,
episode. Same thing again for this gap. And then interrogating, well, will this gap
mm,
help me to achieve my goal? Or is this just something that I'm telling myself?
yeah, yeah. Um, and then, we just thought it's really helpful just to understand your own internal mindset
Hmm.
around actually seeking out or asking for help or support.
Hmm.
Now, whether that's help, support, resource is a what, is a thing, or a person, like actually so many people are incredibly proud and so many people want to figure it all out by
Mm.
themselves or want to kind of you know do it all for themselves, and some I think do find like asking for help almost a sign of failure,
Yes.
when it's actually a real, seeking out the right help and support is such a positive move.
Yeah.
It's the absolute opposite of failure. When you look at, the most successful people out there, however you define
Mm.
success, people feel really inspired by, whether they're like sporting professionals or business people or CPOs or whoever, like, successful people generally have got to that point because they have invested in the right help, support, network, community of people behind them.
Mm.
Often they have not done that thing by themselves, at all. And
Mm.
so I think really kind of understanding, like, how do you actually feel about either seeking out that help and support, or how do you feel about asking for it?
Hmm.
Because for many people, that might be one of your own blockers.
Absolutely.
How you feel about that experience of asking.
Hmm.
And I think just, yeah, working out, understanding how you feel about it, and then thinking, right, knowing how I now feel about it, what am I going to do?
Yeah, and I love to talk about the mindset side of things. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see how much I've smiled during when Donna's been talking about this, because I feel like I relate to this part heavily as somebody who's always thought that independence is one of their biggest values and strengths. That I've had to really think about my own mindset towards help.
Yeah,
And also, we've talked before about the drivers that we have when we're under pressure, and one of those drivers is be strong, because some people do automatically assume that if they're going to try and achieve something, they need to do it all on their own, or that they can't ask for the help. So understanding and recognizing your own mindset towards support is incredibly important. And and going beyond that as well, how many times, I don't know whether you hear this a lot in your sessions, Donna, but I certainly do, around the who they're going to think, who do I think I am? Who do he or she think he or she is? And that stock that we put in the hands of other people around what they think. And so, like, we think,
mm,
well, if we're going to try and stretch for something, if I'm going to try and stretch for a promotion, for a new role,
yeah,
if I'm going to build a personal brand, we've talked about all of these topics over the last 6 months. Then we've got to be really mindful of what that mindset is doing for us in achieving this
yeah.
goal. And so that's why, like you say, a lot of people are proud. They don't want to ask for help because they see it as a weakness, but it's around understanding that right type of help relevant to the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So should we, I mean, maybe even just look at some of the, there's so many different types of people that can help and support people in their achievement of their goals.
Mm.
Obviously we're talking about careers related goals here, but it can look and feel very, very different for different
Mm.
people. So should we maybe
Mm.
just talk about that a little bit, kind of more,
Sure.
the different types of people and help and support that can exist?
Yeah. Yeah, completely. Where would you start?
Well, I think if we let's maybe start with the people that are in roles right now.
Hmm.
You're in an organization, you're employed in a role. Maybe if we start with those individuals, actually I think there's such an array of people that potentially could help you, formally, informally, internally, externally. You mentioned promotion a second ago, and
Mm.
actually we know that, you know, how you secure those bigger future moves and promotions, particularly the more senior you become in your career. Like how you get that next one isn't often how you got the last one. And
Mm,
having internal sponsors at senior level is just so important and actually essential in many scenarios. Like you need the right people in your corner internally even to be considered for that next
yeah.
opportunity. So I suppose like, internally that could be any one of a number of different scenarios. Like some organizations will have formal internal mentorship type programs where
Hmm.
you are actually designated an assigned person or group of people that are there to kind of help and support you. But I think also like less formally, you can kind of choose those people for yourself as
Mm,
well. And it's kind of like really thinking about, if it is about a promotion, for instance, who are going to be some of those important people that are going to
mm,
be part of the decision making
hmm. Yeah,
potentially.
and like you say, there are the more formal routes of mentoring that your organization might have. But I also think it's always good to look at the people who you admire, who are doing something that you want to do, or who are being or and behaving in a way that
Yeah,
you want to behave. And
yeah,
to approach them informally, because a lot of people are willing to help, more so than we give
totally.
credit for. And you said something about those who are in the very senior roles, and obviously we do deal with senior procurement professionals, don't we, between us most of the time. But I remember giving advice when I was back in house around sometimes we want that very senior person as a mentor, but sometimes that can be feel like too much of a gap
Yeah,
because they're well ahead. So
yeah,
sometimes it's worth looking at and approaching somebody who's a step or two ahead of where you need to be,
yeah.
because again, it makes it more manageable. So, and that might be a very senior person, right? I'm not saying it wouldn't be, but definitely try and make it as relevant and next step relevant as possible, I would say too,
Mm,
is a really good way to break that down.
yeah. And I think like it's that point around, who are the people that kind of you aspire to become, or that you kind of,
Mm,
you really like something about how they operate, or they're in that type of role. And I think this is where sometimes that external piece as well,
mm,
it's not just the people that are kind of internally in your organization, but actually externally in the marketplace. Who are those people doing those roles that you'd love to get into, or who are the people that are working in the industries that you're interested in? So for a lot of my clients that are going through a bit of a pivot themselves, so those
mm,
people that they want change in their career, they want to do something that's a bit different to what they've done
mhm,
previously, we'll work together to actually work out how do they test those kind of new options, and how do they explore them further, and who are the types of people that would be helpful for them to go and just have some conversations with. Like they might not know them at the beginning, but it's kind of, how can they get to some of those people to have those conversations, to actually ask some really honest questions, about what is it actually like to work in that industry, or what is it like to work in that type of role or in that type of context. And like you say, like, particularly in procurement, I would say, and I've worked across a number of professions in my career, helping people in their careers. Like, I think procurement is like, there are a lot of really supportive people that want to help, and they want
mm,
to kind of share their knowledge and experience honestly and openly with people. And I
mm,
have very rarely come across individuals, like I'll often ask people in my network to help other people in my network, and
yeah, same.
and I can't even
Mm,
recall a single time where someone has kind of pushed back and said, I don't want to do that, or I won't do that. Maybe like,
mm,
occasionally I can't right now, but I'd love to, but it needs to be, a bit further forward. And of course, I'm asking the people that I know are the types of people that
mm,
want to help and support. But I've found procurement to be an incredibly supportive community of people that they want people in the profession
mm.
to succeed and to grow and to
Yeah.
enjoy.
Yeah, I think you make a great point there. And same, I love to connect people in the background, say, do you know what? I think you'd really get along with this person, or you both have a
Yeah,
shared interest in that. I think the other thing that I would say about that when it comes to asking for help, and I think this ties into a lot of the things that we're talking about mindset, about being able to ask for help, but
yeah.
also about the calibrating of the goal that we've talked about in the second episode of this series, is around the more clear you are on what you want to achieve, the better the help will be from those that you approach.
Mm,
Because sometimes people do approach others for support, but they don't know what they want, or
yeah,
they feel lost. And if you can be as clear as possible, like in the steps that we're offering you in these last 4 episodes, is then once you've identified that person, you can be very clear on what you want to get out of it and be very transparent with them and see
yeah,
how can you specifically help me, or can
yeah.
you specifically help me with this one particular thing?
Yeah, and I would add to that actually, not just like your questions are going to be more relevant, more specific,
Mm.
more purposeful, but actually working out who are the
Yeah.
people to ask. Like, because I think that's the thing. Like sometimes that in itself is a bit kind of overwhelming. Like
Mm.
who should I ask? But when you've got that clarity around what it is you're trying to achieve, it can become clearer to work out firstly, who are the right types of people, and
Mm.
then what are the types of questions and help and support that you're actually kind of looking for from them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what?
Mm.
If thinking about other types of support now, it'd be wrong of us not to mention how it benefits when you seek support that is external to your role and your organization, working with a coach, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so yeah, look, I mean, clearly, we wouldn't be running our businesses if we didn't absolutely believe in the huge benefit it can bring in
Mm.
working with a coach. I've had support in my own business as well. I regularly will work with external people to support me personally in my
Mm.
own growth and development. But it might be useful because I know sometimes we get quite a few people actually trying to like ascertain what do you do, Laura,
Yeah.
versus what do I do. And we don't talk about, we're not using this podcast as a kind of place to constantly like promote our own individual
Mm.
kind of areas. But I think, it feels like this probably is a really good time to talk a little bit about what we both do individually. I know we've got that planned for some future episodes as well. So do you want to start, or just maybe just, you know, if people are thinking about help and support, maybe just giving them some insight into the type of work that you do quite regularly with people.
Yeah, sure. And I think the pivots element of this podcast is you and I both help and intervene at different parts of somebody's career and journey, right, as well. So
Yeah.
I think from my point of view, I tend to work with senior procurement leaders and with those who are either new to role or who are in the middle of building their presence and their impact, either with a whole function beneath them or just as a senior procurement professional navigating change and uncertainty and wanting to become more influential in their role. So I do this in different ways. So the first one is on a one-to-one basis. So like I say, somebody who might be new to role or is in the first 12 months maybe and are just trying to get to that next level. That might be a promotion, but there might just also be next level of leadership. So I
Yeah.
really help them focus on their impact and their influence, their confidence. It might be that they've joined a really senior, they've made it to that seat at the table in their respective organization, and they might be feeling a bit of imposter syndrome or lack of confidence. And so my approach is about how we get them to be the best leader that they can be, that is still aligned with who they are. So I don't want to make everybody these very loud, extroverted leaders if actually they identify as an introvert. I will always work with the person that I've got in front of me. So where I find that really difficult in terms of my own marketing is that I feel like everybody's different. So like I don't just work with one type of procurement leader. And then a lot of my work in 2025 has been actually a lot of teamwork. So I do a lot with procurement teams, and I probably don't talk about it enough, to be fair, but I do this in different ways. So as with larger teams, it could be a skill thing where we're upskilling them in terms of influence and impact communication skills. What I do a lot more of is more team coaching, where it's for smaller groups, where they're looking to increase their impact as a team, get to a higher level of team performance. So when I do that, it's incredibly personalized. I spend time with the team before we actually step in the room together. I understand what's going on for them. I pick out key themes that I'm hearing from all the team members, and I bring that into the room with me without betraying anyone's confidence, but to go, oh, do you know what I'm hearing here? This is a theme. And now I prepare the tools in line with that. So in the session, I might pivot myself based on they want to get to this particular goal, but we might look at, well, what's going on for you here? I'm hearing a lot of mindset stuff here. So it's incredibly personalized and very adaptable. So all the teams I've worked with, different sizes, different sectors, different sizes of organizations and teams. I love it. I love the variety because I feel like it's meeting each particular team where they're at. So it's not a case of I come in, I teach a skill, teach, learn, practice, go by. You know,
Yeah,
it's all about what are we doing to keep moving forward.
yeah.
So they're my two main things. I do also have a training school behind me of being able to offer coaching qualifications that I tailor to procurement because I think it's a really incredible skill that procurement professionals can have. But in general, it's always around looking to elevate your own leadership. So I focus on the
Mm,
leadership element, and I do get a lot of corporate funded work
mm,
because the business does see the value. And if you think your
yeah,
business won't invest in you, ask
yeah,
because you'll be surprised.
yeah,
And I've certainly seen an increase of that
yeah.
over the years.
Great. Well, no wonder you've been so busy, or you were so busy last year with all of that going on. But I know,
Yeah.
you get amazing feedback from the work that you do. So
Thank you.
people have been incredibly lucky to kind of have had that support. Shall I sort of, share a bit
Yeah,
about me and what I do?
absolutely.
I typically am supporting individuals who are wanting to be, I suppose, more intentional about how they go about their kind of building their future career. I would say probably most of the clients that come to me at the beginning, they are coming to me because they are ready for more, or they're ready for a
Mm,
move, or they want that next step up internally. Sometimes it's not necessarily always an external move. But I think a lot of people, because of my recruitment background, just think, oh, if I need help with my CV or my LinkedIn, I'll just go and talk to Donna. But I think people have been quite surprised actually at the kind of the depth. Sorry, I've got a fly flying across me. The kind of the depth of the work that we do. So my main kind of signature program is helping people to go from the point where they know they want and need change, but they don't necessarily know exactly what does that look like. And we're working together to get much clearer on what is that future direction that you want for yourself in your career. And for me,
mm,
that's so important. Going back to your point earlier around the clarity, like for me, the clarity needs to come first. So, people will often think, oh, I'm ready for a new role. Let's dust down the CV, go. But actually, they're not putting the time in to really work out what is it that they most want.
mm,
And when we do that work, that changes everything. And that really shifts the confidence as well, how you then show up for those future opportunities that may be internally or externally. So yeah, it's kind of really, I suppose, working with individuals to get clear, get the clarity. What do you actually want next in your career? And then it's like the successful positioning. So I've got a six-part framework essentially that we work through, which is kind of really get clear, first of all, where do you want to be? Not where should you be, but where do you
yeah.
actually want to go next? And then it's kind of looking at, I suppose, developing that personal brand and really understanding your value proposition, what makes you different. And then it's looking at things like your CV, your LinkedIn, so your online profile. It's kind of helping people to develop a network strategy for themselves that is relevant for those types of roles that they most want. It's kind of helping people to show up confidently for interviews and actually prepare in advance for those interviews rather than wait until you get the interview request and then you're like, oh, I've not interviewed in 5 years, I've got an interview in 2 days' time. So it's just helping people to get really ready. So I do that one-to-one. Um, but I also will sometimes run groups as well. So I will be running a group in February. And so having just done my last group, where I had a group of procurement directors, heads of procurement that came together, and we did a lot of that together. But then there's also a hybrid. So I've developed an online kind of piece as well. So some of it is kind of, people can do some of it with me one-to-one, some of it in a group, some of it is then kind of online working through the framework. So there's lots of different ways that we can work together. But I would say again, going back to your point of asking for the support internally, like most of my clients have been self-funded, and certainly it's been them that's initiated it, but some of my clients, they have been able to get funding from their organization to do this work with me, not necessarily to leave their role and leave the organization, but to help them, to develop kind of how they show up internally in their role and maximize their chances. And also, quite a lot of people have come to me, unfortunately, when they've had that news that their role is at risk or they're being made redundant. And some of those people have self-funded, but some of those have been able to get either full or part funding from their organisation. So it is always worth kind of raising that as part of the discussions if you're in consultation, like really understanding what level of help and support is that organisation going to give you towards your future success. And sometimes I question some of the offerings there, the existing kind of outplacement support, because it's not tailored to procurement. It is very, very generic, and some of the time that initial offer that is made by the organisation, that itself is not going to be enough to kind of to set yourself up for true success in this current market. So yeah, I think asking the question and really seeing like what appetite is there for the organisation to actually, sponsor, pay for some or all of this can really, obviously, can be very, very helpful financially.
Yeah, and I think as well, like you say, around that tailoring is really important. But I think one thing we haven't mentioned, and I think is important to highlight, is that when you have external support, there's a lot that can be achieved when you've got somebody who's not swayed by company politics, someone who's not in the weeds of it with you, who can give you a different perspective. So I know you mentioned that people might just think that automatically you just help with the CVs and
Yeah,
finding a role, and we know that what you do is much more than that. But equally, I wonder and I imagine that maybe you have clients who come to you thinking that it's a new role that they need, but once you've worked through your framework with them,
yeah,
that actually they want to stay where they are, and it's just around finding and connecting with that career fulfillment and happiness again. And I would definitely say the same for myself, that can positively impact on team retention when you do give them that support. But
definitely.
when you are external to it, you can pick up on things that somebody who is internal might not be able to
Yeah.
see. And I know I've mentioned this before, and it's something that I love doing about my coaching, is that where I love to pick up on patterns. And I like to remind people on when they said X to me a few
Mm,
sessions ago, how is that relevant now? Because people don't always realize that's what's going on for them. I did hear this phrase and I loved it. It's like you can't see the label of the bottle from the inside. And
oh
so
yeah,
like, yeah, I've probably butchered that as I always do with my quotes, but it's, yeah, like you can't see it from inside the bottle. And that's where external sounding boards like coaches, like
yeah,
you and I, can really, really help.
yeah. I think also it's just like having that space which is designed to be about you. It's confidential, it's a safe space, but so many people, like I think, internally sometimes people worry about how much honesty they can give, about how
Mm,
they're genuinely feeling. Because actually, sometimes people are worried, like, if I'm so honest about how I'm actually feeling, am I going to put my role at risk? Am I going to
mm,
jeopardize some of these relationships? And so having that, yeah, I suppose that kind of that environment where you can be absolutely as fully honest as you choose to be,
mm,
knowing that it is a totally confidential kind of environment to be able to do that. And so many people, for me anyway, I'm assuming it's probably the same for you. Sometimes it's the first time they have ever spoken out loud about how they're honestly feeling. And,
mm,
if things are difficult and if you are feeling stuck and you're not sure how to work through something, not sharing it can be really problematic. Like often, it can be very, very difficult to resolve something if you're not kind of processing it in a
mm,
positive way.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I think that kind of internal versus external, there's so much benefit often in those kind of internal mentors, but it's a different scenario. And I think the final kind of point I would just say as well, lean into your existing network as well. Like we've
mm,
spoken about kind of, internal sponsors, mentors, external coaches like ourselves, but actually really think about building this strong network of relationships around you where it is based on genuine relationships and trust. And, when you've got a strong network of people around you, you often will always have people that you
mm,
feel you can then go to for help and support. But developing that when you don't need it can be incredibly helpful
mm,
because, trying to build a network because you're looking for a role or because you're looking for X, Y, and Z, sometimes that can feel a bit uncomfortable for people when it sort of feels to them like they're only doing it for a very specific reason. But I think,
yeah,
developing it over time, the right relationships you'll carry throughout your career. And, sometimes they'll move into more like friendships than, business
mm,
relationships. But having that network that you kind of grow, yeah, can make a massive difference. And even then, if you don't know who to kind of ask for help, you can ask people that you do know, and they might be
yes,
able to kind of recommend someone to you, and
yeah,
that that's a confidential, trusted conversation, and it's not going to go any further.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's incredibly important to be able to bring your full self to the sessions, right? Because
Yeah,
then you'll get what you need out of it.
yeah. So look, we've covered this topic of setting yourself up for success this year with, with kind of really breaking down what is your goal? Is it the right goal? What are the challenges you could face? And what is some of the help or support to consider that will maximize your chances of getting there?
Mm,
Hopefully for those of you that have tuned in to all four, like we really hope that this has been a valuable a valuable 4 episode series for you. And we'd love to hear, how are you getting on with the goals? How did you get on with setting them? What are the challenges? Are there any challenges that you want to kind of, share with us to see if we can give any guidance for you? So
mhm.
do feel free to get in touch. Yeah, we would love to hear from you. And yeah, so we hope it's been really valuable and that you're going to be taking some good kind of action as a result.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much, Donna, and thanks everyone for tuning in. And like we say, we just want to help as many people as possible, don't
Yeah,
we? Even if people aren't ready for one-to-one support or anything, there are resources that, we keep saying, like this is a library of resources. But hopefully, these last 4 sessions in particular, or last 4 episodes, have really
yeah,
helped you to sort of get clear and to make sure you can sustain that momentum throughout the year so that you can get to the end of 2026 and go, oh, I'm really proud of that.
yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah,
But if you do think either of us, or you'd like to have a conversation with both of us to see how we can help you, like just reach out and get in touch
yeah,
with us. And, we will always have an initial conversation with people before we start working with them, really for both sides to see,
mm,
is our help and support going to be a fit to help you to achieve those goals that that you've got, or even to help you to set some of the goals as well if you're not yet sure. So just feel free, you know where we are, and please, either feel free to contact both of us or either of us, whoever feels like they might be more helpful.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, everyone. See you next
All
time.
right. See you later. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to Procurement Pivots. We hope today's episode gave you actionable tips to help you to continue to move forward in your procurement career.
If you enjoyed the conversation, follow our episodes, share them with others, and please support us on our social media channels for others that might be interested to tune in.